Have you ever felt a moment so sharp, so intense, that it seared itself into your memory before you even fully understood it? That night began like any other. Or at least that's what I convinced myself. My name is Elena, and I had learned to live in the quiet rhythm of my life. A modest apartment, long work hours, and the steady presence of David, my husband. He was the kind of man whose charm made imperfections invisible, whose smile could diffuse tension, and whose absent-minded gestures often seemed to hide secrets I wasn't meant to see. Then there was Mason, my stepson. At 16, he occupied that fragile space between childhood and adulthood, where curiosity often collided with caution. After losing his mother years ago, he had moved in with us, and while I loved him fiercely, I had always sensed the quiet intelligence in his gaze, a sharp awareness that sometimes unnerved me. He observed, he processed, he remembered everything, and I knew he noticed more than he let on. The apartment was hushed that night, the storm outside tapping against the windows like a prelude to something unforeseen. I was sitting at the kitchen table, tea warming my hands, staring at the glow of my laptop screen. David had claimed a last-minute meeting and left, leaving the house seemingly empty, and Mason was upstairs with headphones shielding him from the world. The silence was thick, pressing against my chest in a way that made my heart beat too loud. A faint creak from the hallway made me pause. Then came a knock, soft, tentative, but unmistakable. "Mom, can I talk to you?" Mason's voice floated down the stairs, hesitant, loaded with an unfamiliar weight. My pulse quickened. Something in the timbre of his words hinted at more than a casual question. It carried the weight of a secret, the kind that changes everything. I followed him upstairs, sensing the tension even before I entered his room. The familiar smell of his laundry detergent and worn sneakers couldn't mask the unease in the air. He sat on the edge of his bed, hands fidgeting with the blanket, eyes cast downward. I saw something," he murmured, barely audible. "I wasn't supposed to." A cold shiver ran down my spine. "Saw what?" I asked, my voice calm on the surface, though my heart was hammering. Mason hesitated, struggling to form the words. It's about Dad. About us." The room seemed to shrink, the shadows stretching longer as a storm of realization began to curl inside me. I had always trusted David, or thought I did, but the tension in Mason's posture, the way his voice trembled, told me that something had been hidden, something powerful enough to shatter the fragile equilibrium of our home. And in that moment, as I braced myself for the truth, I realized that nothing would ever be the same again. I stayed by Mason's side as he fidgeted with his blanket, his gaze darting toward the door as if expecting the world to intrude on the moment. I don't know how to say this," he whispered. His voice was barely audible, trembling like a candle in the wind. "You can tell me anything," I said softly, though a tight knot of dread had begun to form in my stomach. I could feel it coiling, a warning I couldn't ignore. He inhaled sharply, then finally let the words tumble out. "I saw something on Dad's phone. Pictures, messages, things that shouldn't be there. Things about you." I froze. The tepid warmth of the room seemed to vanish, replaced by an icy tension that made my fingers ache. My mind raced. "No, this can't be happening." Not David, not him. Yet the fear in Mason's eyes, so raw and unwavering, told me otherwise. "Show me," I whispered. He hesitated, swallowing hard, then handed me the phone. The screen illuminated a thread of messages, the evidence undeniable. My chest tightened. My throat felt dry. Each word, each image, was a crack in the foundation of everything I had trusted, everything I had believed. Mason's voice broke the silence. "I didn't mean to see it. I wasn't looking." "I know," I said, trying to mask the tremor in my voice. But inside, a storm raged. The familiar lines of our apartment seemed suddenly alien, the shadows longer, the air heavier. I realized how fragile our carefully constructed life had been, and how quickly one discovery could unravel it all. The sound of keys in the lock made us both flinch. David entered, cheerful, unaware of the tension thickening the air. "Hey, what are you two up to?" he asked casually. His voice, so ordinary, felt foreign to the charged atmosphere in the room. I swallowed, gripping the phone tightly. "We need to talk," I said, voice steady despite the whirlwind inside me. David's eyes narrowed slightly, the corners crinkling with curiosity and concern. He took a cautious step forward. Mason sank slightly against the bed, his shoulders hunched. I could see the mixture of fear, guilt, and loyalty playing across his face. It was unbearable, watching him caught between us, a child forced into an adult world he hadn't signed up for. David's expression shifted, confusion flickering into defensiveness. "What is it?" he asked, voice low now, unsure. I realized that what was coming next wouldn't just shatter illusions. It would redefine all of us. The secret that had lingered in shadow, silent and insidious, was now a living, breathing presence between us, and there was no turning back. For the first time, I understood that the night ahead would demand more than words. It would demand endurance, confrontation, and an honesty we had never practiced. As I looked at Mason's pale, worried face, and then into David's uncertain eyes, I braced myself. The storm outside might have raged, but the real tempest was here, inside our home. And I knew, with a shiver that ran through my entire body, that nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. David froze, the phone heavy in my hand, like a weapon pointing straight at the fragile truth he had buried for so long. His eyes darted between Mason and me, confusion twisting into panic, and then into that flicker of defensiveness I had learned to recognize over the years. "Elena." "Wait, I can explain," he said, voice tight, strained. But the words felt hollow, suspended in the thick, suffocating air. I could see the tension in his jaw, the hesitation in his stance, the unspoken acknowledgement that the facade of our life was cracking. Mason's grip on the blanket tightened. "You've lied to us. Both of us," he said, voice trembling with outrage and fear. "Why? How could you?" David ran a hand through his hair, eyes darting toward the ceiling as if the answer might be written there. "I never wanted it to happen. I made a mistake." A shiver of disbelief coursed through me. Mistake. That single word, so casual, tried to contain the chaos of betrayal and secrecy in a neat little package. I wanted to scream, to shake him, to make him feel the weight of what he had done. But I had learned that words, when carefully chosen, could cut deeper than actions. "Do you realize what you've done?" I asked, voice shaking, though I forced it to remain measured. "You've turned our home into a battlefield. Mason shouldn't have to see this. I shouldn't have to see this. And yet here we are. Everything shattered in an instant." David's shoulders slumped, his mask of composure finally crumbling. I know," he whispered. "I never meant to hurt you, Elena. I never—" Mason interrupted, sharp and accusatory. "Never meant to hurt us? You don't get it, Dad. You've destroyed trust. You've destroyed everything that made this home feel safe." The words landed like stones. I could see the guilt flooding his expression, the faint tremor in his hands. And in that moment, I realized that what had begun as hidden betrayal was now a living, breathing force. A tempest we all had to navigate. The storm outside mirrored our own, lightning flashing through the windows and illuminating the raw vulnerability in David's face. My chest tightened as I tried to steady my own breathing. I had to think, to act, to make sense of the chaos before it swallowed us entirely. And then he said it. The words I would never forget. "Elena, hold on tight. Please, we can get through this." In that instant, it felt as if the room tilted. The words were desperate, pleading, but they were also a challenge, a test of endurance. And in the silence that followed, a scream rose from deep within me, raw, uncontrollable, a release of fear, anger, heartbreak, and disbelief. I had never screamed so loudly in my life. Mason flinched. David's face paled, and for a single suspended moment, everything froze. The storm outside, the tension inside, the fragile threads of trust hanging by a whisper. I realized then that the night was far from over. Whatever came next, whatever truths were yet to unfold, demanded that we confront the unimaginable. And I knew, with a shiver that reached my core, that nothing could undo the moment we had just crossed. The room was charged with silence, heavy and suffocating, broken only by the distant rumble of thunder. My hand still trembled from the scream, the rawness of it echoing in my chest. Mason sat on the edge of his bed, eyes wide, gripping the blanket as though it could shield him from what was coming. David's gaze was fixed on me, pleading, vulnerable. But for the first time, I no longer felt any illusions about the man I thought I knew. I can't believe this," I whispered, voice barely audible, though each word carried the weight of months, maybe years, of unspoken doubt and suspicion. The phone lay between us, a stark, glowing testament to a betrayal I had only suspected in fleeting moments but never confronted. David's shoulders slumped. "Elena, I made a mistake," he said, voice trembling, raw in its honesty. "I never meant for anyone to see. I never wanted to hurt you." Mason's face twisted with frustration and hurt. "A mistake? This isn't just a mistake, Dad. This is everything we trusted you with, everything we counted on. How could you risk it?" I swallowed hard, trying to steady my voice. "I don't even know where to begin. The life we had, the trust I gave you, it feels like it's been stripped away in seconds." My chest tightened as the weight of years of denial, hope and faith collided with the undeniable truth. David's gaze fell to the floor. "I know I can't undo what I've done. I've been selfish. I let desire cloud my judgment, and I failed both of you. But I love this family. I love you, Elena and Mason. I want to make this right." The words hung in the air, fragile, almost unreal. Love. Could it coexist with such a deep wound? Could we rebuild from this? Mason's lips pressed into a thin line, his usual sarcasm absent, replaced by a quiet, raw hurt. I reached for his hand, feeling the tension in his fingers, the tremor that mirrored my own. And in that moment, I realized something. This night, this storm, this revelation was not the end. It was a turning point, a fracture that, though painful, could not erase the love, the bond, and the hope that still lingered in the spaces between us. David moved closer, tentative, offering not excuses but acknowledgement, a gesture of accountability that I hadn't anticipated. Mason's eyes met mine, seeking guidance, reassurance, a way to navigate this new, fragile reality. I took a deep breath, letting the storm inside me settle, at least slightly. "We're not okay," I said softly, "and maybe we never will be the same. But we can try. We have to try." The room exhaled with us, a fragile, collective acknowledgement that life had changed. The night outside was still storm-tossed, lightning casting fleeting shadows across our faces. But inside, a strange clarity emerged. Truth, however brutal, had been revealed. And now we had a choice. Let it destroy us or confront it. Together. And I knew, with a shiver that ran through my spine, that this night would mark the moment our family either fractured completely or began to forge a new, fragile path forward. The storm had softened by morning, leaving the city drenched in silver light, droplets glinting like tiny reminders of the chaos from the night before. Inside our apartment, everything was quiet, but it wasn't the comfortable quiet I had grown accustomed to. It was fragile, cautious, reflective. The weight of truth lingered in every corner, pressing gently against us, reminding us that nothing would be the same. I sat on the couch, Mason beside me, and David across the room, both silent. Words felt inadequate now. They could never truly capture the hurt, the betrayal, or the trembling hope that still flickered in my chest. I reached out, taking Mason's hand. His grip was tentative, but there, hidden beneath the tension, was trust, fragile, yet unbroken. "I don't know if things will ever go back to how they were," I admitted, voice low, almost confessional. "But maybe we can find a way forward. Together." David nodded slowly, eyes moist with guilt, but also with a quiet determination I hadn't seen before. "I will do whatever it takes," he said. "No excuses, no hiding. I will earn back your trust. Mason's too." Mason exhaled sharply, the edge of tension softening slightly. I want honesty. That's all. No more secrets." I smiled faintly, a small gesture of relief and connection. "Then we start there," I said. "Honesty, even when it's hard, even when it hurts." The apartment felt different now. Not empty, not broken, but alive with the possibility of healing. I realized that life isn't about perfection. It's about endurance, about navigating storms both literal and metaphorical, and about discovering strength we didn't know we had. I glanced at David, noting the way his hands rested nervously on his knees, and Mason, his eyes reflecting both hurt and tentative hope. We had been tested in ways none of us could have predicted, but surviving this, facing the rawness of our emotions, had revealed something deeper, a fragile resilience, a capacity to confront reality even when it demanded more courage than we thought we possessed. I closed my eyes briefly, letting a breath escape that carried away some of the tension, some of the lingering fear. Life would continue, imperfect and unpredictable, but now it was transparent. The hidden threads that had threatened to unravel us had been pulled into the light. And in that illumination, there was clarity, however painful sometimes, I thought. It's not about avoiding the storm, it's about weathering it. Holding on, even when you're afraid, even when the screaming inside feels endless, because on the other side of it, there is a chance to rebuild, to reclaim trust, and to discover that love, messy, complicated, flawed, can endure. And as the morning sun reflected off the wet streets outside, I felt, for the first time in a long while, a fragile hope settle over us. The night had tested us, shaken us, and even broken us in parts. But it had also awakened a truth I would carry forever. Strength isn't always loud. Sometimes it's the quiet decision to keep holding on,